Hi, this is Ron with 1911 Ultra Tool. This video is about my Universal Pro Tool for round wire full length guide rods for the 1911. So without further ado, first thing of business always when disassembling a firearm or working on it, make sure it's clear. That's eject the magazine, finger away from trigger, and pointing in a safe direction. Clear the chamber. Make sure there's no round in the chamber. And of course, all these firearms have been cleared that I'm going to pull out. This tool fills the gap for the round wire full-length guide rod bull barrel 1911s. Now, it's a universal tool. I'm going to explain that. But first, let's explain what is a bull barrel round wire recoil system. Okay, first of all, bull barrel, no bushing. Full length guide rod is going to be flush with the front. Obviously bushingless, and that's it, except for the type of wire that it uses on the guide rod, and that is round wire. Round wire is just that. The coils are made from round wire, as opposed to flat wire, where the coils are made from a flattened wire. And the big difference is the internal dimensions. This takes a lot smaller guide rod than the round wire does. This tool is capable of locking up on 315 thousandths diameter guide rod all the way up through 330. A little bit of room for underturned and overturned guide rods. And those are pretty much the extreme. I've never come to anything that a manufacturer made smaller than 315 thousandths or larger than 330. And those limitations are based on the wire, type of wire used, and that sort of thing. So, but the inside dimensions of any spring plug are pretty much the same. So even that inside dimension and outside dimensions remains the same from 1911 to 1911, regardless of the recoil system used. This tool also isn't going to work on a dual spring recoil system. Dual spring recoil system has an inner spring inside this spring plug and an outer plug and an outer spring. And they are obviously designed quite a bit different than a single spring guide rod. So I want to do something a little different in showing and demonstrating this tool. Of course, this is a Kimber Pro 45 caliber. We have a custom fit tool for this firearm, and it's very popular. Basically, a custom fit tool I've designed in such a way that when you go to disassemble, it lines the takedown notch. The universal tools don't do that. They're not designed to line any takedown notch. What they do is relieve and capture all spring pressure, so when you release the slide, you just have to move the slide stop down into position for disassembly. Now I'm going to do something a little different on this one. I know when I come up with this stuff, people look at it and they don't think it's probably all that much. I do a lot of testing, and one of the tests that I picked up over the years because of a gentleman that called me way back when I first got started in all this and was so ecstatic because he could take his firearm apart. Well, the deal was he had lost his arm, I believe his right arm, in a boating accident. And one-handed, he could not take his Kimber Pro 45 apart until he bought one of our tools. And he shared with me how he did that. And then every tool I design, I basically look at whether it's a fit for a person who has only one arm. Why not, right? So every one of our tools is capable of allowing you to take that firearm apart one-handed. Now, the first thing, of course, is the slide would have to be locked back. And how he accomplished that was this way. Insert an empty magazine And then basically go back with the slide until it locks. Then you would slip our tool on the end of the guide rod. Then you would eject the magazine, release the slide, move the slide down into position, push it up out, and remove the slide. Move your guide rod and spring assembly. And I'm hoping I'm staying in frame with all this. And of course, then remove your barrel. And I have no idea how he cleaned it, how he did what he needed to do. I'm kind of amazed at all that he even attempted, but I guess when you're in that kind of situation, you become very resourceful. So anyway, guide rod and spring assembly back in. It's no different than when you got it with two hands. You need to make sure it's fully forward, links fully back, barrels in battery, meaning that the hood is completely engaged in the back and the barrel's setting in slugs, and then you're ready to put it back together. You want to move the link down until the eye is visible, fully visible in the link, and then reinsert it onto the frame. Now, what I do, and even when two hands, I make sure that I'm, as much as possible, pushing on that barrel to keep it in battery. As that slide goes back, it's going to go over the disconnect in the rear, and it's going to kind of jolt, which can throw the link off. So in order to keep it from doing that, if I push on the barrel, come back, I keep things more in alignment. I'm going to look to see whether or not my link hole is showing, and it is. So I'm going to attempt to put my slide stop down through there, which it went. I'm not going to try to do that yet. Then I'm going to take it on back, line it up, and there we go. Line it up over the window, reinsert the slide stop, reinsert the magazine, and then I'm going to relock back the slide, and then I'm going to remove the tool. So that's it in a nutshell. If you had to do it one-handed or needed to do it one-handed. But the disassembly with our tools, and it doesn't matter which guide rod system our tool's designed for, I level the playing field. And I don't know how much I want to get into the differences between one 1911 and another, the way the manufacturer has designed the disassembly of them. And it's mainly based on a lot of things, but in most cases, when it requires a tool, it's going to require a wire tool, something like this. But they don't all implement that the same way. What happens is, and you know, here I am trying to do it one-handed and I don't need to. The Kimber Pro actually has the hole drilled in it at an angle, and that would allow you to get a tool in no problem. But not every manufacturer does it that way. And like for instance on this SDI, which has actually, it's supposed to be this dual spring recoil system, I put a single wire full length guide rod in it, but it's SDI. It's SDIs. The hole, and I don't know if you can see it or not, is actually not at an angle. It's directly up and down, because SDI and their recommendations for how they recommend taking their 1911s apart, or how they specify it, you actually take the firearm apart under pressure. You bring it down, push the slide step up out, take it all the way down, or take the slide off, and then compress the guide rod and spring assembly forward like this, and then insert the wire. Now, here's the thing. It's got to be done from one side, and one side only, and that's here. Then you have enough clearance to get your guide rod and spring assembly out. If you inserted it from the other side, or the wire's too long, hangs up, or whatever, you're going to have fits. It's not going to have the clearance it needs to get over this link. So I'm going to show you the difference with our tool. And in fact, I'm just going to put our tool on there right off the bat. Because I really don't care for doing that under pressure, putting it back together. And this has got a really slippery link in it, so it's hard to grab. But anyway, it's the same process going back together as any other bull barrel 1911. Oh, I'm not hitting it. I want to make sure I'm all the way back in battery and locked up. There we go. Now it's there, but because this actually has a flat or flush pin, it's more critical about how that link lines up. Whereas when we have a rounded pin, it's more accommodating for reinserting the pin. But now that's in there. Lock back the slide and just remove the tool. Well, that's it in a nutshell. Of course, this is a 3.5 inch Rock Island CS model, and I say that that's the shortest that it should have, that this will work on, but it's mainly because the round wire recoil system really isn't practical below 3.5 inches, and it's even iffy with the 3.5 inch. If you looked at Kimber's, recoil spring replacement schedule, I mean, when you're looking at 5-inch models, you're looking at 15 and 1800 rounds. When you get down to the 4-inch compact, you're looking at 800. The ultra models, which use a dual coil recoil system, 1500 rounds and 5000 rounds to replace the guide rod, which replaces the inner spring as well. So 3.5 inch on a Rock Island CS is probably quite a bit less than 800 rounds before you have to replace the recoil spring. So how would you do that anyway? Let's see. It's the same basically on all our tools. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this Rock Island and guide rods are different in a lot of respects, and one of them most apparent is what kind of metals are made out of. Rock Island actually chose a non-magnetic soft stainless steel, which is more than likely about a 316, which is great for corrosion resistance, but it is actually a soft guide rod. I don't doubt that it will wear a little quicker, but the magnet in this tool does no good. It doesn't mean it's not usable. The magnet just basically holds the tool in place while the slide's coming forward to lock up the tool. If it's put down on a soft surface and released, it's going to work just fine. But it was one of those quirky things. Now, to remove the tool off any guide rod, any of our tools off a guide rod, you can use the slide as a spring compressor. Now, this is a fitted plug. What a fitted plug is it basically fills that gap between the barrel and the spring plug. It looks more aesthetically appealing because there's no gap there. But it also means that when it goes in, any of our guide rods, to remove the tool, instead of going in from the rear, come in from the front. You just have to, on this fitted plug, have to make sure that also goes in as well. Then you stand it on end, press down to relieve the pressure on the tool, remove it. When you want to go back together, you do the same thing. You just put it back on there, and you're back. And of course, one critical thing with a fitted plug, you need to make sure that this notch and this notch line up where it goes against the barrel, so that you don't get off. Just go back together. But it's all the same. Nothing really changes as far as disassembly and reassembly from one make to another. Now, I want to make sure, because this has got such a really loose link, there's my hole. I'll drop my pin in, come back, and reinsert my slide stop. I say I'm going to reinsert my slide stop. I got to be there. I'm trying to do this on camera. It's a little easier when I'm not. Anyway, and then just remove the tool. So, you know, what is the main thing about if you needed to know exactly what kind of guide rod system you had and whether that tool's a fit? Well, obviously, you could ask Gunsmith. You could also just take a picture like this with the guide rod exposed, front of the pistol, and send it to me at support@1911ultratool.com, and I'll tell you which universal tool fits. So I think I covered it pretty much without going too much extremes, too long, so I'll let you go, but I appreciate you watching. Thanks.